Alright, this is our video for section 1.4 on solving problems with angles. Now that we know all the vocabulary words and how to mark things in our picture and the different types of angles, how to name angles, we're going to solve some problems with them. Now before we start working at any problems, there's some things you always need to do, and we did these same things when we solved problems about line segments. First thing you need to do is draw a picture. You always want to draw a picture if they don't give it to you. Second thing is to label the picture. Either label the one they gave you or label the one you've drawn. Third thing is to write an equation and solve it. And then the fourth thing is to answer the question. Remember, there may be two parts to a question. You may have to find the variable and then an angle in this case. So make sure you answer both parts. Be sure to read the problem and read the directions. Now, as a note, you need to look up words if you don't know or remember what they are. Okay? If you don't know what an angle bisector is and you see it in the problem, you need to go back through your notes and look up what it means. Those words we're going to be using all year, so you really have to familiarize yourself. You really have to know what they mean. Okay, now that we've gone over that, let's start with an example 1. Example 1 says line segment BD is the angle bisector of angle ABC. Angle CBD equals 55 degrees. Angle ABD equals 5x. And our question here is, what is the value of x and the measure of angle ABC? So we have two things we need to find the answer to. We should have two answers to this problem. Alright, well, they already gave us a picture, so now we need to label it. Key thing here is angle bisector. And if we think back, if you don't know what that means, you need to make sure you look it up. An angle bisector cuts an angle in half. So that means that BD is going to split the bigger angle into two equal congruent pieces. And we mark that in our picture with the arc and then the hash marks. Okay? So remember, an angle bisector means it's going to split it into two congruent pieces. Next thing, angle CBD, CBD, that's this angle here, is 55 degrees. Angle ABD, the other angle, is 5x. Alright, and now we need to find the value of x and the measure of the big angle, angle ABC. Okay, don't be afraid to make notes in your directions as you're working these out, or when you take a test or do your homework. It's to help you. So if you need to make notes of what you need to do, be sure to do that. I always want you to label the picture, draw on the picture, but if you need to add anything else, be sure to do that. Alright, so the next step, we've labeled our picture, we need to write an equation. Okay, we're going to use this idea of congruent. Remember, we said congruent means equal. So if we have two pieces that are congruent, that means we can set them equal to each other. So we can say 5x equals 55. Okay? Because those two angles are the same, because they're congruent. Now, so there's our equation. Now we need to solve it. We're going to divide both sides by 5. 55 divided by 5 is 11, so there's what x equals. Now remember, that's only half of the answer. We need two answers to this problem. Second part is we need to figure out what ABC is. Well, to figure that out, it's a little easier. If this angle's 55, that means this one has to be 55 also, because they're marked congruent. So think back to that idea I told you with line segments, that the two smaller pieces always add to the whole. So we would add 55 plus 55. Those are our two angles, the two small angles, and that equals 110. So there would be our answer, 110 degrees. That's what angle ABC is. Now, if that doesn't make sense, go back and rewatch it. Make sure you know the vocabulary words. And if it still doesn't make sense, then bring your questions to class next time. Okay? So let's go on to example number 2. Example 2 says find x if angle WYZ is 82 and angle ZYU is 4x plus 25. Now notice in our picture, we have things that are already marked congruent, which means that they're equal to each other, okay? So let's label our picture. Angle WYZ, that's the big angle, is 82 degrees. And again, I'm making myself notes so I know what the pieces are, okay? Do that if you need to. And ZYU, that is this angle here, is 4x plus 25. Okay, now there's more than one way to solve this problem. You could do several different things. I'm going to go through the easiest way, and the easiest way is to use this idea of congruent. Well, if those two pieces are congruent and the big angle is 82, to find the two small pieces, we would just cut them in half. That means each smaller angle is 41. Okay? Now, since those two angles are equal, I can set them equal. That's what congruent means. Congruent means we can set them equal to each other. They are the same measure. So now we're going to say 4x plus 25 equals 41. Okay? That is one way to solve this. We go through and we solve the equation. There are other ways to do it. So if you come up with a different way, if you see there's a different way to solve it in the picture, I want you to do that on your own and ask me in class if that's an okay way to solve the problem. I'm sure it is as long as you get the same answer, but there's more than one way to solve this problem, and that's fine. Alright, so now we're going to solve our equation. We have 4x plus 25 equals 41. Let's subtract 25 from both sides. So 4x equals 41 minus 25, which is 16. Going to divide both sides by 4 to cancel our 4. So x is 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now, this problem is finished because all it said in the directions was to find x. So we are done with that one, okay? Make sure you read it and you didn't, because we didn't have to answer anything else. All we had to do was find the variable. All right, last example we have here, example 3. It says find x and the measure of angle ROW. Now I wrote this in here. That's another way of saying the measure of angle ROW. We put a little m out in front of the angle. So if you see that, that's what that means, the measure of angle ROW. If ROS, angle ROS is 134 degrees, angle WOS is a right angle, and angle ROW is 4x. They already gave us a picture, so let's label it. ROS. Well, that's the big angle. Again, I'm making myself notes. ROS, the big angle, is 134. Angle WOS is a right angle. Now you need to know what that means. A right angle, remember, equals 90 degrees. So that means this part of our picture is 90 degrees from here to here. And then ROW is 4x. Alright, so we need to find the value of x and the measure of ROW. Two things, two answers to this problem. So, we're going to start with angle, or with x. We're going to find the measure of x. And to do that, we need an equation. Again, we're going to use that big idea I gave you a couple notes ago, that the two smaller pieces add to the bigger piece. So if we take 4x, that's angle ROW, and we take our 90, that's the other small angle, that's got to equal the whole thing, which is 134. Alright, so there's our equation. Now we subtract 90. So 4x equals 134 minus 90. That's going to be 44. Divide by 4. So x is 11. There's the first part of our problem. We found what x is. The second part of our problem, we need to find what angle ROW. The measure of angle ROW. Well, we know ROW is 4x. And if we found x to be 11, we just plug that in. 4 times 11 is 44. So there's the second part of our problem. We have to plug that variable back in to find the whole thing. And then we're done. Now, I'm going to give you one way to check. An easy way to check is just to add them up. We want to check. Well, we added 4x and 90. Well, does 44 plus 90 equal 134? Yeah, it does. That's an easy way to check your problem. Okay, so if you ever get an answer that you don't think is correct, you can always check it like that. Alright, well those are your examples on section 1.4 on using angles and vocabulary and solving problems about angles. Again, if you have any questions about these 3 examples, you need to bring them to class next time. Alright, so there you go. There's your video.